People often say that silence can be peaceful, but the silence I lived with felt like a locked door I was too afraid to open. On the day I married him, my heart was full of both hope and fear. Hope because he had always treated me with kindness, fear because I had never heard him speak, not once, not even a whisper. Some people in town called him the quiet millionaire. Others said he had a damaged voice, something from childhood. A few believed he chose silence because he carried a pain too deep to name. I never asked him why. Maybe I was scared of the answer. Maybe I thought kindness was enough to build a life. The wedding was simple, soft and calm. Flowers, warm lights, gentle music, and a strange sense of peace. He held my hand through the vows, and even though he didn't speak, I felt something steady in him, something almost protective. But when everyone left, when the last door closed behind us, when the world became quiet again, that was when everything changed. We stood together in our new home, surrounded by soft lights and fading echoes from the ceremony. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear the settling of the house, and for a moment, it felt like time had stopped. I sat on the edge of the bed, unsure of what to say. He stood by the window, looking out as though searching for something he had lost long ago. I whispered, gently, "Are you tired? Do you want to rest?" He didn't answer. He didn't nod. He didn't gesture the way he usually did. Instead, he turned toward me, slowly, carefully. His eyes were filled with something I had never seen in him before. Fear, sadness, and a loneliness that felt older than both of us. Then, he opened his mouth. I felt my breath catch. I had never prepared myself for this moment. I didn't even know if a voice would come out. And when he finally spoke, just one word, it was enough to shatter every certainty I had carried into this marriage. He said my name, Lena. It sounded like someone calling out from a place filled with memories he never dared to share. And in that one soft word, I understood something I wasn't ready to face. His silence wasn't natural. It wasn't a choice. It was a prison. And now, I was part of the story that had built its walls. I remember sitting there, frozen, as he said my name again, softly, almost like a question he had carried for years and finally dared to ask. Lena. It felt strange hearing my name in his voice, a voice I did not know, a voice I had never expected to hear. For a moment, all I could do was stare at him. I didn't speak. I didn't move. I just listened as the silence wrapped itself around us again. He looked away, almost ashamed, as though breaking his silence was something he had done wrong. He placed his hand gently on the window frame, his fingers trembling. I could see the weight on his shoulders, heavy, as if he had carried it for too long. I whispered, "You can speak?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. He closed his eyes, and I saw a tear gather in a corner before he wiped it away quickly, as though he didn't want me to see his weakness. His voice came again, barely above a breath. Only sometimes. I felt my heart soften. There was no anger in me, no shock, only a quiet sadness for him and for myself, because something told me that whatever truth lived inside that silence was not small. I stood up slowly, walking toward him. I didn't touch him. I didn't reach for him. I simply stood beside him, offering presence instead of questions. After a moment, he moved to sit on the edge of the bed, and I followed. The room seemed warmer suddenly, as if the walls themselves wanted to listen. He didn't speak again, but something in the air felt different. The silence between us was no longer empty. It was full, heavy with things unsaid. I wondered how long he had been holding back his voice. I wondered what it cost him to use it now. And I wondered what kind of life he had lived before he met me. When I first met him, he had been a quiet man who lived alone in a large house on the hill. A house that always looked peaceful from the outside, but somehow lonely on the inside. People said he inherited everything: land, businesses, old properties his family once owned. But whenever someone mentioned family, his eyes changed and he would walk away. No explanation, no words, just that silence that wrapped itself around him like a layer of armor. That was one of the reasons I didn't ask too many questions. I thought I was protecting him. I thought silence was his safe place. But now I wasn't sure if it was safety or a cage. I sat beside him, my hands in my lap, and let my voice come out softly. You don't have to explain anything tonight. I kept my tone calm, gentle. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. He turned his head slightly, just enough for me to see the corner of his eye. There was gratitude there, but also fear. I remembered the first day we met. It was in the small library near the old marketplace. I had gone there to find a book for my mother. He was sitting in the far corner, reading with the kind of attention only someone who wanted to escape the world could have. When I dropped my bag and books scattered everywhere, he stood up quickly and helped me gather them. He didn't speak, but he smiled. A small, gentle smile that felt warmer than most words I had ever heard. After that, I saw him a few more times, sometimes in the library, sometimes near the quiet lake, always alone, always silent. Eventually, he started leaving notes for me. Short ones, simple. Good morning. Be safe. Take care. The handwriting was neat, careful, almost fragile. I didn't know why someone like him, someone with wealth, land, and influence, would notice someone like me. But he did. Slowly, gently. Our relationship grew in silence, but not an uncomfortable one. It was peaceful. It felt safe. When he proposed, he didn't speak. He wrote the question on a small piece of paper and placed the ring beside it. Will you share a quiet life with me? I had tears in my eyes when I nodded. I thought his silence was simply part of who he was. I thought we would learn each other's hearts without words. But now I realized that silence can hide more than voice. It can hide truth. It can hide wounds. It can hide stories a person cannot bear to tell. I looked at him again, sitting with his shoulders lowered, his hands clasped together like someone who had been holding something fragile for a long time. He whispered a third time, barely audible. "I'm sorry." I felt my chest tighten, not from hurt, but from the softness in his voice, the pain behind the apology, as if he had already disappointed me. I shook my head gently. "There's nothing to be sorry for." He didn't believe me. I could see it in the way he lowered his gaze to the floor, like someone who had lived too long waiting for punishment. There was something childlike in that moment, something vulnerable. And I realized that whatever truth lived inside him had roots deep in his past. I reached out slowly and placed my hand on top of his. He flinched, not from fear of me, but from fear of being seen, truly seen. His fingers trembled under mine, and for the first time since I met him, I felt the weight of the silence he carried. He lifted his head just enough for our eyes to meet. "There are things you do not know," he whispered quietly. I nodded. "And you can tell me when you're ready." He closed his eyes again, letting out a long, shaky breath. Then, he whispered something that stayed with me long after that night. "I don't know if I can." It was not a refusal. It was not resistance. It was fear. Deep, buried fear. In that moment, I understood something important. This marriage wasn't just about loving a quiet man. It was about learning the truth he had wrecked tightly inside his silence. And whatever that truth was, it had followed him into this house, into this marriage, into this night. I didn't know it yet, but the secret behind his silence was larger than anything I imagined. It wasn't about a damaged voice. It wasn't about shyness. It wasn't even about trauma alone. It was about a promise he had made long before he met me, a promise that had cost him his voice and almost his life. But that part of the story would not come until later. For now, I simply held his hand, quietly, steadily, patiently. Because some stories take time to be told, especially the ones buried in silence. The days after our wedding felt gentle on the surface, but uneasy underneath, like walking across a quiet lake, knowing the water below was deeper than it looked. He spoke only that one night. After that, he went back to silence, not with coldness, but with the kind of stillness that makes you wonder if the moment you imagined actually happened. Sometimes I replayed it in my head, the sound of his voice, the way he said my name, the fear behind the word, Lena. It echoed in my memory like something fragile, something I wasn't meant to hear yet. In the mornings, he would wake up early and make tea. He never asked how I liked it, but somehow he prepared it exactly the way I preferred. Light, warm, and not too sweet. He placed the cup on the table with quiet care, then stepped aside as though giving me space to breathe. I watched him often, the way he walked through the house with soft footsteps, the way he touched the furniture gently, like he was afraid to disturb things, the way he paused before opening any door. He lived in silence not because it was comfortable, but because speaking seemed like stepping into a place he didn't want to revisit. One afternoon, I decided to explore the house. It was large, with wide hallways and wooden floors that creaked with age. Old clocks, dusty bookshelves, faded paintings, and windows that looked out onto endless fields. But the house didn't feel lived in. It felt preserved, as if someone had frozen time inside its walls. There were rooms that looked untouched for years, a guest room with neatly folded blankets, a study with books arranged perfectly by size, a dining room with a long table no one had used in months. But the one room that made me pause was the room at the end of the hallway on the second floor. The door was closed, locked. And unlike the other rooms, this one had a feeling about it, like it held something that didn't want to be remembered. I didn't try to open it. Not then. Not yet. Later, that evening, as we sat at the small dining table, I looked at him quietly. His face was calm, but his eyes shifted often, toward the hallway, toward the stairs, toward that locked room. I finally asked softly, "Is there a room you don't want me to enter?" He froze for a moment. Then he shook his head slowly, but not convincingly. There was fear again, that same hidden fear. I didn't press further. Instead, I changed the subject, asking about small things: the garden, the books on the shelves, the way the light came through the windows in the afternoon. He answered with gestures, nods, and soft expressions. But silence can only hide so much. And soon, little things began to reveal themselves. On the third night after the wedding, I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Soft, but hurried, not his usual calm steps. I sat up slowly and saw the bedroom door half open. A faint light spilled in from the hallway. I found him standing there, barefoot, his hands shaking. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring toward the staircase, toward the second floor. I whispered, "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. His breathing was uneven, like someone fighting a memory. I stepped closer and gently touched his arm. He flinched, not from fear of me, but from being pulled out of something deep. His lips parted. For a moment, I thought he would speak again, but he didn't. He simply pointed toward the upper hallway. Something, or someone, had woken him. The next morning, he avoided the area entirely. He stayed downstairs close to me as though trying to hide from something I couldn't see. It was the first moment I realized his silence was not the only thing haunting him. A few days later, we went to the small market together. People recognized him immediately. They looked at him with curiosity and something else I couldn't quite name. A woman approached me quietly as he walked ahead to buy fruit. "Are you his wife?" she asked, her voice cautious. I said, "Yes," offering a small smile. Her eyes softened with sympathy, not the kind you give someone lucky, but someone carrying weight. She lowered her voice even more. She said, "Be kind to him. His past was not easy." I felt my stomach tighten. What happened? She hesitated, glancing at him. She said, "It isn't my place to tell," she whispered, "but you should know that his silence began the night he lost everything." "Everything," I repeated. She nodded, slowly, sadly. Then her husband called her, and she walked away, leaving me with a heaviness I didn't understand. When we returned home, I watched him walk inside the house, his shoulders slightly hunched, as though carrying a past that pressed down on him. I remembered her words. His silence began the night he lost everything. I didn't know what he had lost. Family? Someone he loved? His sense of peace? But I knew that whatever happened had carved a deep wound inside him. The letter I shouldn't have seen. One afternoon, while cleaning the study, I found a drawer that had been left slightly open. Inside were letters. Old, yellowish letters tied with a faded ribbon. I shouldn't have touched them. A part of me knew that. But something else inside me, a quiet worry, made my hands move. The envelopes were addressed to him, all of them, but none of them had been opened. I ran my fingers gently over the top envelope. The handwriting was elegant, careful. It looked like a woman's hand. I didn't open it. I simply held it for a moment, feeling the weight of something unsaid. Then I heard the door behind me. I turned. He stood there. His expression changed instantly. Fear, panic, a silent plea. He walked forward in 2 quick steps, gently taking the envelope from my hands. He didn't push me. He didn't scold me. He simply held the letters close to his chest, shaking his head slowly. I whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." He shook his head again, his eyes closed tight, as though holding back tears. He placed the letters back in the drawer and pushed it closed carefully. Then he turned away. He walked out of the room slowly, as though each step cost him something. I stood there, my heart aching. I didn't see anger in him, only pain, a deep, quiet pain. And I realized something important that day. Every unanswered question was not just a secret. It was a wound. The locked room upstairs was now the only place I hadn't seen. And the more he avoided it, the more I understood that this room, whatever it held, was the center of his silence. One evening after dinner, he was sitting on the porch as the sun went down. I walked upstairs quietly, my feet soft on the old wooden steps. I stood in front of the locked door. The hallway light flickered slightly, casting long shadows across the floor. I reached out and touched the doorknob gently. Cold, heavy. And then, something unexpected happened. The door clicked. Not loudly, just a soft, tired click. I realized he had forgotten to lock it that day. I hesitated. My heart beat slowly, deeply. I didn't want to betray him, but something inside me whispered that I needed to understand. I turned the knob and opened the door just an inch. The smell hit me first. Dust, old wood, and something faintly floral, like a perfume that had faded long ago. I pushed the door open a little more. Inside was a small room, not empty, not untouched. A bed, a desk, a stack of children's books on a shelf, a small pair of shoes by the corner, a faded blanket folded neatly at the end of the bed. Everything looked like it belonged to a little girl. I felt the air leave my lungs. A child had lived here, a child he never spoke of, a child whose things remained untouched, as though waiting for someone who would never return. I whispered into the quiet room, "Who were you?" Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned. He stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes wide with fear and heartbreak. He didn't speak, but he didn't need to. Tears spilled down his cheeks silently. He took one step inside, his gaze moving over the tiny shoes on the floor. His lips parted, trembling. This time, he whispered something I barely heard. She was everything. My heart stopped. She, not is, was. He walked past me slowly and sat on the small bed, touching the blanket gently with shaking hands. Then he whispered, barely audible, "My daughter." The room spun for a moment. A coldness washed over my skin. He had a daughter no one had spoken of, a daughter whose room had been preserved like a memory trapped in time. And whatever happened to her, whatever happened to the small room, was the reason behind his silence. He looked at me with broken eyes. And for the first time, I understood that the silence he carried was not a simple story. It was a loss too deep for words. He still hadn't told me everything. Not yet. But the rising conflict between us, the gentle tension, the unspoken questions, the small moments of fear, had now turned into something else. I finally knew the first piece of the truth. His silence began the day he lost his daughter. And the deeper truth, the part that would soon break both of us, was still locked inside his heart. That night, the house felt too big, too silent, almost hollow. I sat at the edge of the bed, replaying his whispered words over and over. I never spoke because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Afraid of me? Afraid of marriage? Afraid of his own family? I didn't know. But when the door clicked open and he stepped inside, something in the air shifted. His eyes weren't cold anymore. They were searching, soft, almost pleading. He walked toward me slowly, as if every step cost him something. "I didn't lie to you," he whispered again. I couldn't speak. My breath caught. This time, his voice wasn't shaky. It was controlled, deep, raw, like someone learning how to use words after years of swallowing them. "Then why now?" I managed to ask. He sat beside me, hands trembling. "Because for the first time in years," he said quietly, "I'm not scared in my own home." I froze. Home? Did he mean with me or without them? Before I could ask, he reached into his pocket and placed something in my lap. A small folded photograph, a younger version of him, maybe 12 or 13 years old, sitting beside a woman with kind eyes and the warmest smile. His mother. The same woman his family never talked about. She was the last person I spoke to. After she died, his voice cracked, but he kept going. "They punished me for loving her. They forced silence on me. Years of it." My heart dropped. His muteness wasn't a condition. It was trauma. And at that moment, I realized something that changed everything. He wasn't a mystery I accidentally married. He was a man who had been waiting his whole life for one safe moment. And somehow, I had become it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. His confession hung in the room like a fragile thread, and I was afraid that even breathing too loudly might break it. I turned the photograph over gently. On the back, in a child's shaky handwriting, were 4 words: "I'll speak again someday." My chest tightened. He had been holding on to a promise he made to himself as a child. And somehow, without knowing, he chose me as the moment to keep it. "I'm sorry they did that to you," I whispered. He shook his head slowly. "Don't be sorry, just don't walk away now." The fear in his eyes wasn't the fear of losing a wife. It was the fear of losing the first person he had trusted in years. I reached for his hand. The first time I initiated the touch, his fingers wrapped around mine instantly, tightly, like he had been waiting for that gesture more than any spoken word. "You don't have to hide from me," I said. "Not anymore." His shoulders dropped, almost in relief. For the first time since our wedding, he smiled. A small, uncertain smile, but real. Then, unexpectedly, he whispered, "Thank you for giving me my voice back." I felt tears rise. I wasn't the one who healed him. He had done that on his own. But I had been there, quietly, at the moment he chose to step out of the shadows. "Tell me everything," I said gently, "when you're ready." And to my surprise, he nodded. "I'm ready now." So we sat there, side by side, as he slowly unfolded the story of the silence he'd lived in for years. The grief, the punishment, the isolation, the secrets his family hid, and the fear that had wrapped around him like chains. And with every word he spoke, those chains loosened. By the time dawn touched the windows, he wasn't the mute millionaire anymore. He was simply a man rediscovering himself and choosing to rediscover life with me. Morning light slowly filled the room, soft and golden, like a gentle promise after a long night. We were still sitting there, our fingers loosely intertwined, the empty cups of tea cold on the table between us. He looked different now. Still quiet, still calm, but no longer carrying that heavy, unseen weight on his shoulders. His silence had always felt like a wall I could not climb, but now I understood that it was not built against me. It was built around himself, to survive. When he finally spoke again that morning, his voice was steadier. "I don't know how to be this," he said, "but I want to try." "I'll learn with you," I replied. And that was enough. We didn't promise perfection. We didn't pretend everything was healed overnight. Healing, I realized, isn't a sudden moment. It's a quiet, slow journey, like walking through a house after a storm, picking up broken pieces one by one. We took small steps after that. Morning walks, shared meals eaten in gentle silence, short conversations, shy at first, then longer, deeper. Moments where he leaned on me and moments where I leaned on him. Some nights he still fell silent, retreating into old fears. But now, instead of feeling alone, I simply sat beside him until he was ready to return. One evening, weeks later, he came home early. I was in the kitchen chopping vegetables when I felt his hand slide around my waist. I turned, surprised, and found him looking at me with a calm, steady expression. "Thank you," he said softly, "for not giving up on me." I smiled. "You're worth the patience." He closed his eyes for a moment as if letting those words settle into the parts of him that still doubted he deserved them. And then he whispered, almost like a confession, "I love you." It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And hearing it, after all the silent meals, the hesitant steps, the long nights of wondering, felt like the softest, sweetest miracle. Our marriage didn't start with grand speeches or loud promises. It began with silence, and then with courage. Today, when I look back, I don't remember a mute husband or an arranged wedding filled with questions. I remember a man who found his voice in the middle of his fear and chose to share it with me. Sometimes love doesn't arrive shouting or singing. Sometimes it arrives quietly, in shared tea, in patient nights, in hesitant whispers that mean more than entire speeches. And if life has taught me anything through him, it is this: the heart does not heal quickly, but it always heals honestly when someone is willing to stay long enough to listen.